Welcome back to the old Switcharoo. We're talking gaming retro with Mike and Jaymo.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Jaymo. Today we are tackling a topic for the episode episode number 3 that I am calling Mustachioed Quarter Munchers. We are going to be, over the course of this podcast, trying to play and critique every retro game available to people who are subscribed to Nintendo Switch Online. There's over 200 of them, so we've divided them up into little subcategories. And specifically, this one is Arcade Puzzler, but I had to come up with a clever title than Arcade Puzzler, so I came up with Mustachioed Quarter Munchers. And Mike, I'm just going to guess you already have a problem with the title. Am I right?
I mean, yeah, I do not think that there's mustaches on most of these.
We're gonna get to that, I promise.
So Mario Brothers, I have played at some point in time in some form, and I'm not sure what.
And we should clarify right out the gate, this is not Super Mario Brothers. This is not the game that most people think when they think of Mario Brothers. This is the arcade puzzle game where your goal is to just clear a single screen of enemies. So you played it, you can't really put your finger on where. Mario Brothers, from the description on Nintendo Switch Online, released in 1986 by Nintendo. Mario and Luigi are doing some underground plumbing when all sorts of strange creatures come flying out of the pipes. Help the two brothers clear stages by collecting coins and avoiding getting hit by enemies. Crabs, turtles, and fighter flies must be cleared out by jumping underneath the platforms they're standing on and then kicking them away. But beware, just when you think you got rid of them, they come back for more. Play alone or with a friend. Either way, this is one underground classic you will want to play time and time again. Mario Brothers was really directed by Shigeru Miyamoto, who developed the tennis game we played in one of our previous episodes. And this is a nice opportunity to talk about Gunpei Yokoi. I think I might be saying the first name slightly off there. Are you familiar with this name, Mike?
No.
He is the creator of Game & Watch, which was kind of an LCD sort of Nintendo console we'll be talking about eventually, because the games are collected on one of these cartridges, or I should say digital cartridges we're going to be playing. But he was also the inventor of the Game Boy, and what I think is his greatest contribution to video gaming, the cross-directional pad, or as we know it, a D-pad. This guy invented that thing. And it's hard to imagine gaming without the D-pad because, of course, it gave way to the joystick and just made it so that you could control a game with your thumb instead of with your whole hand. So his contribution to the gaming industry is really huge. I've got some trivia.
Did he do that working for Nintendo?
Yeah.
Okay, so Nintendo chose to have the arc of you switching to you can control with just your thumb instead of your whole hand, just to go back to, no, let's bring the whole hand back into this again. And then we're surprised that wasn't successful.
Well, and then, you also think about the Wii, right? Where it's like, let's bring our whole body. Let's have motion controls. Nintendo is always trying to innovate in ways that they control their games, and, all the way back here to the 80s. So for our trivia section, knowledge is power, superpower, we've got some trivia here for you, Mike. I tried to stay away from things that I think most people know, but I wanted to mention that Mario's first appearance is a little different than I originally thought of it as. It's pretty common knowledge. Do you know what Mario's first game was?
I had thought it was Donkey Kong.
Right, it is Donkey Kong. Now, he was known as Jumpman in that game, but I was surprised to learn today in researching for this episode that in Donkey Kong, Mario was not a plumber, he was a carpenter, which, when you think about it, that makes a lot more sense because that level's game design, or that game's level design, I should say, it's like you're on a construction site. And
I'm surprised he wasn't a Cooper.
Wait, what do Coopers do?
Coopers make barrels.
Oh, I feel like I knew that in the back of my head. Well, so my source listed as carpenter, but I mean, Cooper does kind of make a lot more sense and almost plays into the whole Koopa Troopa sort of thing. So when
there's a whole alternate lore that they could have gone with here.
Every episode you mentioned that there's some fan game in the works or alternate lore. Yeah, what if Mario made barrels instead of unclogging toilets? So when designing Mario Brothers, which was, of course, a pseudo sequel to Donkey Kong, Shigeru Miyamoto thought to change his profession to a plumber because it better matched the setting of this game's piped levels. And interesting enough, he thought the overalls and the mustache made him think plumber. And like overall, sure, but do you associate mustaches with plumbing at all?
I mean, I don't not associate it with them. I mean, at this point, the case may well be that I associate it with plumbers because of Mario.
100%, 100%. So, do you know who Mario's named after?
This is the story that it's like a landlord.
Yes. So this is from a 2018 obituary printed in the New York Times. The name of Nintendo's mascot changed from Jumpman to Mario when Nintendo of America's landlord, Mario Segali, I hope I'm saying that right, burst into a staff meeting demanding rent. And I like to imagine that they offered to name the character after him because they didn't have the rent that day. I'm totally making that up, but I think it adds a little juice to the backstory. And
do you think their previous landlord, Mr. Jumpman, was disappointed?
Mr. Jump. Okay. All right. Take it easy there. Let's leave the Jumpman family alone. I'm sure they've been through a lot. And so do you know, if I had to ask you, if you had to guess, why turtles? Why were turtles the central antagonists of this game?
I mean, they're well known for being in sewers.
Are they? I thought that was just a Ninja Turtles thing. Wait a minute. I think my world just got a little larger. Was Ninja Turtles a thing because there were already turtles in sewers?
I was just going for the Ninja Turtles joke.
Oh, okay. You let me go on for a while on that one. So
I thought you might figure out that.
Nah. So turtles were the essential antagonists of this game because of the mechanic of the game. In fact, I'll go to a screenshot here I took during my playthrough. In fact, really the only way you combat enemies in this game is you have to travel to the level below them and then jump up, punching the ceiling, which sends the opponent standing on that platform flying up and then onto their back. And then after they've been knocked over in this way, then you can run into them and kick them off the stage. So turtles were the central antagonist because Shigeru Miyamoto thought that a turtle is an enemy that you could only defeat from below. So this makes sense for the gameplay mechanic. And that's funny for two reasons to me. One is that Koopas are such an icon in the Mario franchise. And so it's funny to think that if not for this exact gameplay mechanic, it would have been some other animal. But do you know what I find funny about this assumption that we have to make it turtles because you can only defeat turtles from below? Do you see the humor in that logic?
Yeah, because everything after this, you distinctly defeat them from above. I think I died pretty quick in this because I thought that could work.
How many times did you have to stop yourself from jumping on a Koopa? It's ingrained in us. And I think that really speaks to just how ubiquitous and how sort of universal Mario games have become. We instinctually know, you jump on Koopas. And also, did you also really want to hit other turtles once you kicked the stunned turtle away? I really wanted that chain reaction you get in the later Mario games, and I was really missing it in this one.
I was hopeful that was going to work because I was not doing well. I needed anything that was going to give me an advantage.
Yeah.
So I didn't find myself missing it, but that would have been nice. Just like I said, I needed the edge on that.
Yeah. So taking a look at the box art, the North American release for NES has the basic pixel art cover. It's basically just a screenshot of actual gameplay footage, which, Mike, I'll let you finish this Simpsons quote, which is Abe Simpson would say
was the style of the time.
Yes! Oh, that was unrehearsed. I alley-ooped it. You got it. Yes. This is just like the tennis cover where it's just, picture of the gameplay. And
although, to that point, I would like to point out, because we just discussed the turtles can only be killed from below or whatever.
And clearly here you see him about to jump on a turtle.
Yeah. So you don't realize it, but how many other covers are of the main character about to die?
About to die, and also low-key giving bad advice to the person about to play the game.
I mean, death usually is.
Yeah, sure. No, not in every game. So then we have the Atari, which is just also really interesting, to see a Mario game on a system that's not a Nintendo system. This is before Nintendo was strictly exclusive with their IP. And I like the Atari cover. I don't know about you, but I love when games show you, what you're going to be doing in it. And
Luigi creeps me out, but other than that,
I mean, I think Luigi's creepy in his cover because he just looks exactly like Mario. It doesn't look like Luigi to us. It looks like Mario cosplaying as Luigi.
yeah, like
But
it's definitely that. Like it's not like this isn't some weird uncanny valley. It's just that's supposed to be Luigi. That's not what Luigi looks like anymore.
And I also find it funny, and I don't know if it's from this cover, but there's a little detail about the cover that kind of gives me a chuckle. Do you see it? It's kind of there in the center.
No.
Look at their caps. Can you not see it on your screen?
I mean, oh.
It's their names written along the brim of the cap, Mario and Luigi. And it's almost like, I don't know if you were a kid and, you shared clothes with siblings, but like when you wanted to mark something as yours, you'd like write your name in Sharpie on the brim. And, this would eventually, this concept would become the M and the L on their caps.
Which,
and
in a sense, doesn't make sense from that origin because they're already sorting it out because Mario wears his trademark blue and
right.
Luigi is in his trademark green.
But I like, though, you say trademark blue, but Mario's cap is red, by modern definitions. And then it's even stranger that on the North American box art, he's got blue on blue. It just looks so wrong to me. He's wearing denim with a denim undershirt. Like, come on, that's too much blue. That's as my wife would call it, when I wear too much blue, I look like Leonardo the Blueberry. I look like Leonardo DiCaprio mixed with the blueberry. So come on, Mario, too much blue. So what was your impression playing the original Mario Brothers arcade game?
Actually, I'm just gonna say, now that I think about it, that looks less like Mario on the Nintendo cover than it does feel like it's really a game starring David Crosby from Crosby, Stills and Nash.
Oh, I wish I got your reference. I would really love to alley-oop your reference like you did to mine, but that's a musician, right?
Yes.
Okay. I only know that because of the Metalocalypse episode where they're wow, stumbled through that word. The Metalocalypse episode where Nathan Explosion and Squizgar are teasing Murderface, kind of taunting him, saying he can't write a song. He's like, okay, let's go Simon and Garfunkel. And then Squizgar's like, yes, Crosby, Stills and Nash. He's like, why am I always two people? Okay, this was just an excuse to do my Metalocalypse impressions. Mike, talk about Mario Brothers. Get us back on topic here. What do you think of this game?
First of all, I'm very bad at this game.
Okay.
I think
we saw that. We played this 2-player mode right before we recorded. You a lot.
People don't need to know that there's witnesses to that.
Sorry.
I do think that part of what throws me is that jumping is useless.
I mean, you have to jump though.
Yeah. The Aqua Teen Force kind of worked its way in there. It's that the jumping is so limited in how much it really is, and this is how reality works. So fair play. Like when you hit jump, at the point where you've done that, the rest of that jump is pretty much predetermined.
Right. Your jumps have a set arc like they do in real life, whereas opposed to every other Mario game after this, you can control yourself in midair, which is how platforming games became, possible.
Yeah. So there's a whole lot of moments of me missing that and then just knowing that I got to watch the rest of this jump fail.
Right.
Which, if I'm lucky, it's just that like I didn't have quite enough momentum and I meant to jump to the side and I just jumped straight up. If I'm unlucky, I have landed on an enemy.
Now, I find it interesting that you use the word momentum because that's one of the things I liked about this game and maybe it's because you couldn't control your jumps. And when Mario is running and then you need to do an about face and run away because an enemy is coming right at you, he sort of skids a little bit as his momentum shifts from one direction to the other. And in later levels, when the freezies show up, those are the ice enemies. Did you get to those?
Not a chance.
Oh, you were really bad at this game. Well, I shouldn't criticize you that much because, again, for those of you who aren't aware of the premise of the show, Mike is trying to be a retro. Mike is trying to game retro. I'm going to get that straight one of these days. And by that, it means that whereas I am going to use save states and rewind functionality while playing the emulated games on Nintendo Switch Online, Mike is going at it as if he was in the 80s, which means that he doesn't save unless the game lets him save. He doesn't restart unless it's baked into the game. So I probably would have struggled a lot if I hadn't been rewinding to retime my jumps. But when things work out well, when you flip an enemy just in time so that it obstructs the path of a different enemy, and then a coin bounces off that enemy and into you, and you're just sort of jumping around and dodging and weaving, it feels really cool. It feels out of control, I think, in kind of a fun way. I think sometimes it can add to a sense of danger if you can't control your character super well. I know this is a bizarre comparison, but it makes me think of the first Resident Evil games because you didn't have full control over your environment, and so it added some tension.
It is weird that you can basically compare a rail game to be a game that's sort of off the rails.
Yeah. More or less.
And certainly like the momentum stuff, like I get it's more just that was a tough thing to be good at.
Yeah, it just didn't click with you is what you're saying.
Yeah, like it's I may have gotten better in time.
I always forgot to use the POW block. So at the very bottom of every level, and that's definitely one of the, if we're talking about JoyPros versus JoyCons, one of the cons of this game is that the level layout never changes. Like there's a slight difference in texture where it's like, oh, these are blocks versus these are pipes. And I think one of them makes it look like they're like made out of wood. It's the same level layout. So the only variation from level to level is what enemies come out of the pipes at you. But there's only 4 types of enemies. And there are 99 levels in this game, or as this game calls them, phases. But in doing my research, I came to learn from people talking about it in forums, there's actually only 14 levels that the game loops through over and over until you reach 100. And Mike, do you know what happens when you beat this game and you beat phase 99?
Let's go with you start back at level 1.
Yeah, start back at level 1, which was an arcade thing back in the 80s. But it's just not even a congratulations, not even a sound cue. It's just like they hadn't programmed that. This was purely just a quarter muncher designed to just entertain you. And I mean, I found the game kind of addicting.
That was just it. Goodbye and good luck.
I found it addicting until I realized that it wasn't really going to change that much. There were definitely some cool parts of the gameplay. I like that since you have to hit the enemy from below, there's sort of a satisfying sense in like setting a trap. You're sort of laying in wait to flip an enemy over. And then once an enemy is flipped over, they're stunned, but their stunned body will now deflect oncoming enemies. So you can now use them as like a shield. And I just thought there was kind of a lot of nuance to a game that I thought was pretty simplistic. I easily had the most fun playing with you. How did you think the 2-player mode compared to playing it by yourself?
I do find it fascinating that I don't think this game ever decided if 2-player was meant to be versus or co-op. Like you can't kill one another, but you can ruin this for one another.
Yeah.
And it's separate scores.
Yeah, your scores are separate. And since the game doesn't really have an ending, I don't really think it has much draw outside of being competitive. You versus me, let's see who can get the high score. But even then though, like you said, that's so easy to accidentally kill each other. If we were playing versus, what would you think, who would win? Whoever survives longer or who has the higher score? Because those are different things.
Oh, I'm imagining that in versus, you should actually be able to jump up and hit the person above you, and then they end up flipped upside down for a little bit.
That would actually be kind of a rad little death match. Because one of the things I like about this game is it has, I always just called it Pac-Man mechanics, but I guess the exact term is wraparound, where if you run off the right-hand side of the screen, you'll reappear on the left-hand side. It's like the whole thing is like a cylinder and you're just running around the outside of it. And, same thing goes for your enemies. So it'd be amazing to be trying to sabotage your opponents, flip them upside down, stun them just right before a crab comes and gets them. But, alas, it was not to be. And, my cons, like you said, the controls can be a bit unresponsive, level layout never changes. And there's not a whole lot of incentive to beat the game. So did you have anything else to say about this game before we go to the next one?
Yeah, I'm gonna forewarn. There's gonna be a theme here called Mike has other games that are like this, but he likes better.
Okay, so what game would you recommend? I'm guessing, we'll jump the gun a little bit, or maybe we should save that for our recommendations. Do you want to save that for our Nintendo versus Nintendo?
I'm going to keep it relevant to this because this is stuff that I don't think is on Nintendo, but this is just other arcade games that I enjoy more that this reminds me of.
Yeah.
Just the feel of this makes me feel like this is a lesser Joust.
Right. So Joust, for those unfamiliar with it, it's kind of like this, where you have like platforms that are set and you're riding around. It's such a cool premise. I mean, I just want to see a movie made out of Joust. You're riding around these on top of these ostriches, and like they can fly. Now, I don't know. I mean, real ostriches, they can fly, right?
No, they can't. Good Lord, they can't. They're giant.
Well, okay. I said that wrong. I meant like prehistoric ostriches. Like at some point, like they evolved to lose the ability to fly.
I mean, yes, when they became so big they couldn't.
So you ride around on ostriches that can fly, and you have you joust with, what's that called, a lance?
Yeah.
And your goal is to fly into other riders and peg them, and the sense of momentum is much better. You control every flap of your little steed. And I would agree that Joust is a better game than this.
There's still the momentum kind of things, and it's still sort of you have to come at the enemy from the right way.
Right.
But and it very much has that wraparound screen thing. So it is I am going very fast one way, picking up speed. And I think because it's a little bit more open, this felt like I was hitting into things a lot more than I wanted to, because you're very limited in where you can change levels.
Yeah.
And you have to time those jumps just right. Whereas Joust is a little bit more of, you can be good at it or you can be very good at it, but it didn't quite feel just like it failed or it didn't.
Yeah, to play Joust in games more like that, it feels more like a sport. Whereas this is sort of like, I don't want to say luck of the draw, but you're definitely in less control of what's happening in a bad way. Well, so I wanted to explain myself with the whole mustachioed quarter muncher, sort of angle. Should I save that till after our critique, or should we do that first?
Yeah, let's go for that.
Okay, so Mario, right? Obviously a mustache. In fact, his mustache was a big gameplay innovation, or I shouldn't say gameplay, I should say graphics innovation. The idea of adding those pixels to simulate a mustache created a face shape that had never been seen before in video games. So that one's a slam dunk. Okay, so let's go for it then. At the end of each episode, we establish whether or not the games are a NintenDo or a NintenDON'T. So let's go through the order in which we talked about them. Mario Brothers NES. What are you thinking, Mike? NintenDo or NintenDON'T?
I'm going to say NintenDo for like 20 minutes to see where it came from and then move on to better things.
Yeah, it doesn't have a very big investment, of your time, that is. It certainly, won't take up your whole afternoon. And it is sort of an interesting curio as, one of the original iterations of the character. So I don't know how to categorize this, and I wanted to get your academic opinion on it, because I think I have to say it's a NintenDON'T. As much as I sort of enjoyed Mario Brothers, I want to show you something. Do you know what this is? I'm showing him a screenshot of Mario Brothers.
Not particularly.
Well, if you had to describe what you're looking at.
It's the exact same sort of level, except we have a red spiky turtle, which clearly communicates that you cannot jump on them even if you think you can.
So these are screenshots from the version of Mario Brothers that's included in the Super Mario Advance series. They re-released Mario 2, Mario 3, and Mario 4, and every one of those cartridges came with a remake of Mario Brothers. And the graphics are better, the sounds are better. There's a run button, there's a crouch button, which I can't really figure out the purpose of.
Fireballs.
And it has I don't know if it actually got me under, but I'll definitely try that. And it also has 4 players at once. So Do I say that this is a NintenDO'N't because there's a better way to play it?
I think so.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. Or I kind of think it's on its own. Would you play it or not? And I kind of
Well,
think,
I wouldn't play that version of it. I'd play this version of it. It's much better.
all right, then make your decision.
Then it's a NintenDO'N't, I say. Yeah, it's a NintenDO'N't just because it doesn't. I mean, so it's a Nintendo if you don't have the expansion pack. Because if you're not paying the extra $50 a year, you don't get to play Game Boy Advance games. But so yeah, it's a Nintendo, but just know there's a better way to play it if you just go to the Game Boy Advance and select Super Mario Advance. So please like, follow, and subscribe if you think we've deserved it. Thanks again for listening. This has been the Old Switcharoo talking gaming retro with Mike and Jaymo.
I've been Mike.
And I've been Jaymo. Game on, everybody.